own research, Department of Oncology and Public Health, also Director Center for Kidney Biology and Immunology. This is a hope for HS Detroit have been around at least 2 years. This year we enhanced the frequency, the enhanced potential, the patient interaction. I'm just very happy to see everyone, especially the kind of people, the leadership involved. This group meeting and all here is first of all, I think the medical director is Dr. Hamzavi and Dr. David Lewis are here. And also the medical lead, Dr. Richard Huggins and Dr. Ever Young are all here. This is and also we have also the Hope HS support group for Andrew Parker Miller here, and she also will give the talk today. And also the couple medical students involved as a group did a lot of housekeeping work. And also from Hope for HS Detroit, community chair and Embo Cobra also here is here now. I think so the goals here and the major goals enhance the people the patient education and also the HS, people know the HS, and also enhance all translational research and Andrew will be talking about today for clinical trial ongoing and benefit for the HS patient. And then later on, they have a group discussion, and some topic will discuss the pain, the management, the skincare, and such. Okay, without further ado, to probably can ask Angie come here to give the talk. Yeah. So, Jeff, you do the intro? Sure. Okay.
Hi everyone, hopefully everyone's doing well. My name is Jeff. I'm a rising fourth year medical student from Central Michigan University, and I'm one of the co-directors for HS. So the next person that will be speaking is Angie Parks-Miller. She is our clinical research manager for investigator-initiated studies here at MU4, and she will be talking to you about clinical trials and how to get involved. So, Angie.
Thank you. So for those that are returning and those that are newly here this evening, we welcome you being here. I have been privileged to be a part of Hope for HS since it started in 2014 when it was first founded here in Detroit, and I'm happy to be here with all of you this evening. I'm going to keep my presentation as brief as possible, and because the goal of this evening is to make sure that the patients and families and caregivers have time to interact and have time for discussion and questions. But one of the questions that I get asked frequently is in regard to clinical trials and some of the language that surrounds clinical trials. What does it mean? Also some things about clinical trials to be considered in regard to HS when making a decision about participating. So that's what we'll be covering, and we'll keep, like I said, we'll keep it brief. Next slide. So just the basics, what is a clinical trial? Clinical trial is a study that is going to be testing new medicine, procedures to see if they're safe and effective, and these studies help doctors find better ways to treat different diseases like HS. But every medicine or treatment that we use today started with a clinical trial. So in clinical studies that use human beings in them, we can divide them into different phases. So phase 1 trials are very small trials. They have like 20 to 100 people in them. They're usually the first time that a treatment's being tested in humans, and the goal of it is to check to see see if there's a safe and a right dose. Then we move on to phase 2 trials, go to a bigger group of people, usually 100 to 300 people. We're looking to test to see how well the treatment works and look for side effects, and then also decide if we should go to a phase 3. In phase 3, we get to even larger big groups of people, 300 to 3,000 people. We'll compare the new treatment against the standard treatment or to a placebo, and if the results are good, the treatment could then be approved for public use. Phase 4 trials are done after a drug has gone through all of those other phases and has received approval from the FDA. And at that time, phase 4 trials are focused on looking at long-term data and looking at the impact of a drug on a patient over time. So who can join a trial? Clinical trials can be joined based upon things called inclusion and exclusion criteria. So these are requirements that a person must meet. Some of those examples can be age, sex, or the condition, such as HS. Some of the exclusionary factors that can prevent someone from joining could also be some of those various same things, along with other different health conditions that may coincide with HS, for example. One of the key things about clinical trial research to remember is that clinical trial research is completely voluntary. You can leave a study at any time, but that's why it's also very important to understand some things to be looking for when you're considering being a part of a clinical study, so that you understand risks and benefits and that you can make a fully informed decision about what you're choosing to participate in. So a few questions that you can ask before considering to join is, what's the purpose of the study? What are the possible benefits and the risks? Will I have to stop my current treatment? How long will this study last? Will I have to pay for anything? And by that meaning, am I going to spend time away from my job where it will cost me in that way, or with commuting? And then also, can I leave the study if I change my mind? And as we just mentioned, that clinical trial research is voluntary and you can do so. But HS-specific considerations can include what treatments must be stopped and for what length of time before participating in order to be a part of the trial. This is known as a washout period. So for example, if you're someone who's taking a medication, let's just say one of the injectable biologic medications, and there's a clinical trial you want to participate in, it may be a requirement that you're not on that medication for a period of time anymore in order to be a part of the study. Another thing to consider is what, if any, rescue therapies or treatments are permitted during the study. So if you enroll into a study and then you have a flare of your HS, what treatments are permitted? Are they treatments that you've used in the past that you know you could get by with, or are they ones that maybe you don't feel were very effective for you? And then again, the time commitment. Clinical trial research is very important, and if you are able to make all of those study visits and it works with your work schedule, personal schedule, those are all things that you might want to consider. But joining a clinical trial and reasons why can be very personal for each individual, but it can help with access to new treatments before they're available to the public. It helps advance medical research for HS. And then while you're in the study, you will always receive very close monitoring by the physicians and researchers. And then additionally, most clinical trials do offer some compensation for your participation because of the time commitment that you have to make. So I've often been asked how do I find a study? How do I look for clinical trials? So there's a website called clinicaltrials.gov that is maintained by our federal government. On that website, you have the ability to search for by the disease that you're looking to be involved in. You also can look at eligibility criteria, study locations. But the one thing I want to point out too is that once the study is completed, all of the results have to be published on there within 12 months after the study is reported as done. So what I want to show you really quickly, and hopefully this link will work. So this is a link to a study that at our Henry Ford location that we'll be performing this spring. This is a study for HS using something called a BTK inhibitor. And what you can see on here is not only a brief summary of the study, you can see some information regarding the design. And then we can look at participation criteria. So you can see if this is something that you might be eligible for. And then if I go back to the presentation, you can also look on that same website at other studies to maybe help you make an informed decision about being involved in a study by looking at maybe earlier phases of that trial. So here's an example where if you look at the earlier pioneer studies, which was adalimumab or Humira, you can go onto clinicaltrials.gov and you can actually see a summary of the results from the study itself. So that's just another way that you can get a little bit more information to help you decide about what you would like to do with the study. But some final thoughts on this is that clinical trials are important for finding better HS treatments, but advocacy organizations actually have a great impact on clinical trial design. So Hope for HS, I know myself and Athena, our president, as well as others in our group have had a lot of interaction with people in industry to provide insight on patients' experiences in the study, and it's really helped, I think, to make a better design for trials and an experience for patients overall. So if you might be interested in joining a clinical trial, or you're interested in learning about one, you can talk to your doctor, or you can research them on the clinicaltrials.gov website. Any questions?
I was wondering, if you go through that process, how upfront are they with possible risks of taking medication? Or that's one. And then the other question is, do they let you know at the end of the trial if you took that medication or a placebo, or how do they go through that?
Yeah, so because it is research, there are risks that may not be known at the time that you participate. But that informed consent document that you would be given when you are at the screening visit to enroll in the study goes through what is known about that medication, goes through what risks and benefits are known at that time. But again, because it is an investigational medication or therapy, not all of those risks may be known at that time, at that moment. And then there are studies that I have been involved in where there's been a randomization and patients have been on a placebo, and we would find out later on at the end whether or not they received an active form of the medication or the placebo. But to that point, there are also studies that I've been involved in, and one that we have coming up, where there's a period of time where you may be receiving the active study medication or a placebo, but after that period of time is done, everybody is receiving the active medication, and you would be aware that you're receiving the active medication. So that's why it's really important, I think, to look at the design of the study that you're getting into. And so when you start to formulate some of those questions, when you are approached about going into a clinical trial, or maybe you found a study that you're interested in, kind of having some idea, like you're saying, knowing what questions to walk in to ask so you can make an informed decision about participating.
Can I make a comment as well? Can you hear me okay? So yeah, just talking about the risks of clinical trials, I think two other factors go into that as well.
I
was trying to. I can think that. All right, can you hear me all right? But I'm Dr. Huggins. I'm one of the HS doctors here at MD4. Those of you who haven't met me, and I do a lot of the clinical trials work here with Angie and Albert and Dr. Me and the whole team here. But I was just going to say, in terms of, and you know me, in terms of risks of clinical trials, a few factors that play into that as well are what phase of trial are we talking about? You know, is it the phase 1 trial that Angie mentioned where we're trying to figure out if there is even a safe dose of the medication? Clearly at that point, we're not as comfortable with the risks of the medication, especially at the varying dosages. As you go up to phase 2, 3, 4, we have, you know, trials using the same medicine at certain doses that we can rely on to give us some idea of the risks of the medication. But then a lot of medicines that we use for HS, that we use in general in clinical trials, they've already been FDA approved for other conditions or have been used for other diseases for years and years. So we have a pretty good idea of the risks. We're more so looking at, how beneficial the medicine can be for this particular condition as compared to others. But still, you don't know all the risks. It's a different population. There could be other considerations, but you feel a lot more comfortable in those medications that have already been around for a while. They've already used for other diseases, and we're just seeing how well they work.
So do they tell the patient at the end that they receive the medication or the placebo?
Generally, we do. It just depends on at what point. It's never going to be right when you finish the study because we're collecting all the data and trying to see for the people who received it, who didn't, what the results are. A lot of times, the nurse or the doctor you're seeing on a regular basis for the study doesn't know whether you're getting the real medication or not. So we don't even find out that until later on. And sometimes we don't. Should I talk about BTK?
Go ahead.
All right.
Go for it.
So I did just want to touch on the study that we're starting here about the BTK inhibitor for HS. I'm the PI, the main doctor for that study. We could break out a diagram and show you exactly the mechanism for how BTK inhibitors work, but that's not going to be useful for you. What I think is most meaningful to say about that medication and how it works is that it's different, significantly different from the other medications we use to treat HS. So, I'll use the brand names, so I think you guys have heard those more. So we know Humira, we know Remicade, and those calm down the immune system just generally. They're, not the most specific. And then we have newer medications like the Cosentyx and Benzellix and Tremfya, and those more so go after one particular kind of immune cell called the T cell. The BTK inhibitors go after more the B cell, so it's just a totally different kind of immune cell. And I think that that's important because we're coming to realize more and more that there isn't one medicine for everyone with HS. There's not just one kind of HS. HS is a lot of different diseases that have some similarities, but what works in one person isn't going to work in another. So the more varied treatments that we have that work for a significant percentage of people with HS, the more tools we have to try to find something that works for everyone. And then a lot of the important work that Dr. Lee is doing is trying to figure out, hopefully with a blood test, which medicine is going to work for you instead of what we mainly do now, which is, let's try this medicine for 6 months. If it doesn't work, let's try another one for 6 months. And if that doesn't work, so, it's kind of, you guys are suffering during that time or making an educated guess, but we are really just guessing. We're trying to move away from that.
Do we have any questions coming in with the online watchers?
No.
And I just wanted to say one more thing before I sit down. And that is, a lot of you are regulars, so you may know this already, but Angie wasn't just here when Hope for HS started. She's the reason that Hope for HS exists here and around the country and world. So I want to make sure you do that, not let her downplay her importance in all this.
Well, thank you, but, it was a representative, collective work of a lot of people that I was very privileged to be a part of very early on at the beginning. And, we have Ebony here, who is one of our OGs, who's been here since the beginning as well, and Sandra Lebeau, who did so much work for Hope for HS. And so I'm happy. I had to take a step away for a little bit to take doing some schooling and education, but I am very happy to be back.
We do have a question.
Sure.
Someone asked, how are you going to charge insurance how are you going to change the insurance company's mind on that process?
Can we get clarification on what process they're asking about?
Oh, let me see if they'll let me write. Okay, so. I guess, so what is the typical process, I guess, for treatment when it comes to insurance companies?
Well, I guess it would depend on what the treatment is. So, for example, if it's trying to get insurance approval for, let's just use Humira as an example, the process can be different for drugs that are used that are approved for that purpose. So there are some drugs that are approved for HS, and then there are drugs that are used off-label for HS. And the process to get to the point of approval can be more lengthy or less lengthy depending upon an existing approved state for that medication for the purpose of HS treatment. And then it can also be different based upon procedures that you might have if you're trying to get laser hair removal treatment for HS. And
Okay, the person did clarify. So Dr. Huggins was talking about how sometimes we have to switch medications after 6 months if it's not
Sure.
working. So I guess they want to talk about what's the process with, I guess, with insurance on changing medications if one is not working.
I'm sorry?
You want me to come in?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Should I repeat the question, or do you think it's...
You can.
Why not?
Okay. So I guess, like this person said, like they always have to do antibiotics first before they can even try another treatment. So I guess what's the process with insurance companies? If a medication is not working, what's the process of getting the insurance to approve another medication? I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, it starts with sending a prescription and trying to submit request prior authorization, and then depending on if it's how much evidence there is that this medication works, how many alternatives there are, things of that nature, the insurance may, if it's FDA approved, the insurance may approve the request right away, and in other cases they'll deny it and say, you have to try this medication first or that medication first, or you need to submit evidence of why you think this medication, is going to work in this patient, evidence that it's worked in other patients and other studies. And then sometimes we have to talk on the phone with people from the insurance companies and have a discussion with them about all the things that we've tried and why we think this new medication will work. Generally, though, if there are only 3 medications FDA approved for HS, so it's typically not too hard to get one of them approved, unless, sometimes you have to do antibiotics for a little while. But usually, for HS, it's come to people realize how serious it is, how much it affects people's lives. If you need a medication, we can usually get it for you, either through the insurance company, the drug company sometimes provide free medication. There are other programs that we can get people connected with. But yeah, we are usually able to make it happen. It just sometimes takes some work and some time.
Okay. Another question came in about, pain management. A person said that their insurance doesn't cover pain management for HS, so I guess they have to, the doctor's putting it as back pain, so that they can get pain medication for their HS, which is causing, I'm assuming, inconsistencies in their medical records.
Yeah, I don't have experience with that. I mean, certainly, different medications are approved for different problems, right? And so if you have HS and arthritis, say, and the medication is approved for arthritis but not for HS, then, we may emphasize your arthritis when we're trying to request the medicine. But just pain medicine, like, Norcos and Tylenol number 2s and 3s, we don't prescribe those a lot in dermatology anyway. So I haven't had experience with, using back pain as a reason to prescribe pain medicine to get it covered.
Okay.
But I mean, in all cases, if something's not getting covered, you want to have a good conversation with your provider and talk through with them, if there's a way to get it covered, if there are alternatives that may be covered, and work things out that way.
Okay. So it sounds, I think the consistency is trying to talk with your medical provider, whether it's to get a different type of medication if antibiotics is not working and being overused, and also to help with pain management. All right.
Yeah, and actually that's a great answer, because the way that we typically try to go after pain for HS is by treating the HS. Pain medicine, it can be important, but it's not going to get rid of your HS. It's putting a Band-Aid on the problem. So we more so use steroid pills and steroid injections if the pain is immediate. We need to get rid of it right away. If it can wait a little bit longer, we use antibiotics. But then the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned as a doctor, is long-term management. And so that involves, surgeries and, injectable medicines and lifestyle changes that are going to be, long-lasting.
Okay. And that's okay. So those are all the questions that came in.
Well, I want to make sure that we get to our group discussions, and that we have time for that with everyone who's in attendance here. So, they have on the agenda managing pain, flares, skincare, diet, lifestyle. I mean, we can start anywhere, but does anybody have any questions or want to offer any suggestions or comments about any of those topics?
Do we want to keep streaming and have you
That's
up
what I'm
there?
asking.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to?
It just depends on the group and how the group feels about streaming. Whether they want, we could stop the stream and have an interpersonal group discussion. That's totally fine.
I think that would be best.
Okay. All right. Can you just give a message to us, to our the people that's online? Just a quick goodbye or something like that.
Yes, so to those who are attending virtually, thank you for joining us this evening. We are going to be stepping away now so that we can do our group discussion, and we hope that you'll join us for our next meeting.